Yes, welcome to the No State Project live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. A little unusual. We were supposed to be doing this for a while, but a little different. We're supposed to be doing a show live on Saturdays, but because of my travel schedule, I will not be doing that. So almost every other Saturday, I will be recording the show. So we have all new material. I mentioned this on the Wednesday broadcast. So whoever we missed, if you weren't able to call in on the Wednesday broadcast, then you've obviously you can call today. Hopefully, people start lining up here in the No State Project. It is January. I'm going to say it's January 19th because we're hopefully this audio is going to be streaming on the YouTube. It is streaming on YouTube. But it will also be going on the LRN, which LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, which is the regular Saturday show. And unlike the Saturday show, usually this is commercial free. So thank goodness for that. So it worked out pretty well last week having the show. And I wasn't able to broadcast on LRN.FM, but it worked out because we were able to do the show commercial free, which is pretty cool. So if you want to join me, the number is 218-632-9399. It's in the description, but I'll give it out anyway. 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. If you're listening to this on the LRN.FM, it is pre-recorded. All new material, but it is all pre-recorded. So don't go dialing the number and then not being able to get through and contacting me about that. Also, as far as contacting me, most of I'm pretty accessible. My information is at markstevens.net, the website. So if you do order something or if you have a problem ordering, please, fairly busy throughout the day. Don't just pick up the phone and immediately call me. If you're having a problem with an order, always Skype me or email me first, and we'll get that taken care of. If it's not something that can be taken care of that way, then a phone call is appropriate, but not just out of the gate. Hey, I don't understand this. Let's do a call. Another thing, too, is I don't process orders on Saturday. Sorry about on Sunday, rather. I have to have one day off. And so please don't go filing complaints with PayPal because you don't get it on a Sunday. And I even had somebody, recently within an hour filed a complaint against my PayPal account. So I get things there pretty quick. So please do, understand I'm a one-man operation, unfortunately. And so sometimes it takes more than a few minutes to be able to process an order. So please don't, that's kind of a, not a classy move. Let's leave it at that. But speaking of not classy, that's why I call the tentative title for the show is Lock Him Up. So if you remember back 2.5 years ago to the election 2016, there was the chant about locking Hillary up, lock her up, lock her up. And now it's like every day more and more evidence comes out. And again, I'm an anarchist. I'm against having a ruling class. I'm against having a government of people who just force people to, like me and you, to give them money. They're a criminal organization. But it's particularly gratifying when the evidence against one of their own is so overwhelming that they have to do something about it. Even someone like Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick, was forced into. He didn't serve any jail time as he should have, and he wasn't even charged with his behind-the-scenes negotiations with the Vietnamese. How many more people wound up dying because of Richard Nixon doing that? Here, it's just unbelievable. Now, I shouldn't say that. We've known for a while. So if you go back to when they were chanting "lock her up," and I'm not a Hillary or a Clinton fan, and I'm not a fan of politicians. She was accusing him. Hillary was accusing Trump of being a Russian puppet, and he says, "No puppet, no puppet. You're the puppet." And it turns out that Hillary got something right. Well, when you're Secretary of State and you're a pretty high up bureaucrat, you probably are privy to such information. So it turns out that, yeah, she looks like she was right. She knew what she was talking about, but there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of news about his possible connections to Russia. It was always a constant theme. And the more that comes out, the more you're, oh, holy crap. So this week, his former fixer, Michael Cohen, the Mueller investigation has other witnesses besides him. He is only confirming what they already know with documentary proof. And they probably have recordings, because we know Michael Cohen recorded his conversations with Donald Trump, knowing what his propensity for lying at every step. And so they have emails, and to show, for example, that he directed his fixer, Michael Cohen, to lie under oath to Congress regarding his Russia connections. So it's what they like to call suborning perjury. Someone's asking why there's sanctions on Russia. Well, for example, they invaded Crimea. They invaded Crimea. It's probably just one of the reasons why there's sanctions on Russia. And so where was I? Okay, so yeah, suborning perjury. Donald Trump, after becoming president, directed his lawyer to lie under oath, to commit perjury. So when you direct someone to commit perjury, they call it suborning perjury. So if you go back to the 90s, when the Republicans were frothing at the mouth about Bill Clinton lying under oath, they said, well, we don't care that he got a blowjob. That's not the issue. The issue is he lied. He committed perjury, so that's impeachable. Now you've got apparently, corroborating documentary proof of what Cohen has been saying, who has been convicted, okay, of campaign finance, among other things. But here he's going to be testifying about these matters February 7th. So, wow, it's no surprise that there is a government shutdown, at least a partial government shutdown. Well, someone says, does Cohen have merit these days? Yeah, he's a liar, just like Donald Trump. It's a fire hose of lies. The thing is, the FBI, the Mueller team, has documentary evidence to support what he is saying. So he may lie for Trump as for a living, but they have independent corroborating evidence in the form of emails. And I wouldn't doubt for a second, of course, like I've already said, that they have audio recordings of this. That's what he did. That's why they raided his office. To think that a porn star is responsible for bringing down possibly, well, at least being able to help uncover impeachable offenses. Probably nothing's going to happen. Let's see evidence. Yeah, well, that's what's coming out. I mean, the whole thing with Russia is if you follow the story, he said he had nothing to do with Russia, absolutely nothing to do with Russia. And then as the evidence comes out that there was a meeting in Trump Tower with his kid and Jared Kushner, and then they go, well, it only had to do with adoption. Well, the sanctions against Russia retaliated and wouldn't allow Americans to adopt any more Russian kids. So that was the cover story, that they were just going to talk about adopting kids. Well, of course, that's the, they did a bad job of putting a code name on what they were talking about. If they had proof of anything, they would have jumped on him and put him away, you dumbass. They are so threatened by him, all they can do is lie. Wow. Oh, I think we got a QAnon type over here. His own Donald Trump Jr. went on Fox News. They have his emails. He voluntarily gave up his emails over a year ago. He admitted to going and meeting with a Russian lawyer with connections to the Russian government under the pretense of getting dirt on Hillary Clinton. That is admitted. That's not fake news. That is what is called evidence. His own son's statements and the emails. That's evidence. And in this thing, if they had evidence, they would have pounced on him. One, they're doing it's a massive investigation involving a lot of people. They've already gotten, I don't know how many indictments out of this, including indictments on Russian agents. They just indicted another Russian lawyer. Wow. His lawyer has been convicted. His campaign manager has been convicted and is charged with other offenses. Again, I'm not a fan of government, but I don't, they're facts and they're corroborated independently and by his own children. If they had anything on him, there are lawsuits just on the emoluments clause violations that this guy is contributing to and committing. Kellyanne Conway on national television. This is, Trump can pardon his lawyer, but then his lawyer can't claim the Fifth Amendment on testimony. So yes, he can pardon. And again, if they charge his kids, then he's probably going to do a pardon there. Show the facts then. Well, I'm discussing some of the facts. The emolument, they just had come out that the hotel that Trump leases, that Verizon, that they've already shown how many, Russians, now that Verizon's looking to do a merger, that they can show that he's profiting from having foreign dignitaries stay at his hotel. That's a violation of and just Kellyanne Conway, his secretary, one of those press secretaries, or some kind of, oh my gosh, she has been on national television pushing Ivanka's clothing line. Again, that is a conflict of interest. That is against federal law. That is not a matter of fake news. She's on TV doing it, unless you want to say that the libtards and George Soros paid to fake that. How could anyone honestly think that Donald Trump is a genius? Have you listened to the man speak? He presented fast food. What is that? Is that fake news too? Did they fake all that damn McDonald's and all that fast food? Is that all fake? So everyone around Donald Trump is a damn criminal except for Donald Trump. I have the best people. He is the best at literally everything. He is a classic example of a narcissist. He has the best brain. He has the best memory of all time. I'm not making this up. This isn't fake news. Anybody can look up and look on YouTube and see video of him saying these things. He has the best brain. He has the best words. He knows more about infrastructure than anybody. He knows more about the wars and the conflict in the Middle East than even the generals on the ground. I have a good brain. What adult talks like that? And someone's going to come on here and try to support that? Please tell me you're just trolling at this point. This is a guy that on national television said, I don't stand by anything. You have white supremacists in Charlotte. White supremacists. Jews will not replace us. They find people on both sides. Statists must be desperate for a savior if they're shilling for Trump. Yeah, I tell you, it defies description that a vile piece of garbage like Donald Trump, who has, well, he's a businessman. He has filed for bankruptcy 6 times. That's a good businessman? They have documentary proof to show that he overvalued his properties to get loans. That's dishonest. It's unethical. Oh, for heaven's sakes, his own kid admitted on national television, he admitted they couldn't get, that so much of their investment money is from Russia because the American banks, after six bankruptcies and how many hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits from vendors that he refuses to pay. He's such a good businessman. He's going to say it like it is. And the thing is, there may be some people listening or watching this show right now who have actually contributed to the pile of cash that a so-called self-proclaimed anarchist by giving is jumped on the Trump train, and people just continue to give him money while he laughs at you and just sits there counting all his Bitcoin, counting all the donations, and making fun of people and mocking them for small donations, jumping on the Trump train. There were so many warning signs. He's going to drain the swamp. How many times have we said this? Good Lord. Oh my gosh. Scott Pruitt alone with the EPA had to resign in disgrace. There were at least 12 ethical violations against him. 12. So where is it, Mark? Where is the proof? I've been discussing a lot of this. His own attorney, and then the CFO for Trump. Businesses flipped and is giving testimony and is cooperating with prosecutors. Where's the evidence? Show the evidence. He said on national television, he fired James Comey. I'm not a fan. He fired James Comey because of the Russia investigation, because he said it was a witch hunt. It's a made-up hoax. It's fake. It's fake. Those are his actual statements. To fire the head of the FBI in an effort to kill an investigation is criminal. I can't believe that there are people that believe that stuff. It's just like, no matter how many times I say it, I guess because, Mark, you're blinded by ego. There's a war going on. You can't say, oh, yeah, I'm blind. Someone like that, if you're saying that I'm blind, give a call to the show. We have a full open, they're open. You're blinded by ego. Yeah, because I've demonstrated through all this that I'm the one with the ego. 2 years of nothing. Where is the proof? Are you people watching? Oh, are you just saying that it's fake news, that anything negative against Trump is fake news? And let's not forget something. If you just believe what Donald Trump says, every single person that has been prosecuted and that's gone against him and testified against him, every one of them, and of course Michael Flynn is right, Michael Cohen's right there. Every one has been excoriated by Donald Trump as being dishonest. So let's take Donald Trump at his word. All of these people are dishonest. And then his own lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, just admitted again on national television that there was collusion with the campaign. His own lawyer said that. So the campaign was corrupt. Everybody around Trump is corrupt. Trump even says how dishonest they are. So if we take Trump at his word, what does that say about Trump? Again, I'm telling you what he's actually said here. He has said these things. Look what he said about Omarosa, what a horrible lying snake she is. Look what he has said about Michael Cohen, that he's a liar. He's a liar. So again, we are accepting that as true. Donald Trump, I have the best people. I have the best people. All these people that he has surrounded himself with, he has turned on and said how dishonest they are. What the hell does that say about Donald Trump? And he knew Michael Cohen for decades. So he surrounded himself with nothing but criminals? Really? And he's a stable genius? I don't even want to start imitating it starts to make my stomach turn. That's Stephen Miller. I'm spouting BS as usual. Call the show and tell me what facts I'm getting wrong. All right? If all these people that Donald Trump say are criminals, such again, starting with Michael Cohen, his personal attorney, his fixer, if they were all so dishonest, if they were engaged in crimes, according to his current lawyer, that there was collusion and dishonesty by the campaign, but he didn't know about it. So here you got a guy who micromanages, who's surrounded by criminals. I'm not going to repeat myself just to fill up airtime. I've already mentioned. He said, here's some more evidence. If you go back, Trump's own statements, he has nothing to do with Russia. No deals, not seeking deals, nothing to do with Russia. Then it comes out, he admits just a few months ago that he was doing Trump Tower. He was Moscow. He was looking to do that. It didn't work out. They had a letter of intent signed. That is a lie. He lied. That is evidence of a lie. I double down. You're blinded not just by ego, but arrogance too. Yeah. All right. If I'm ego, what does that say about someone like Trump? I have the best brain. I have the best memory of probably of all time. That's a direct quote. I have the best words. I know more about infrastructure than anybody. I'm a builder. I know more about infrastructure than anyone. I know how government works. Nobody knows more about government than me. Nobody respects women more than Donald Trump. Okay. I don't think we're going to, but if you want to join the show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, either, but it's great anytime they start turning on their own. And I'm not saying that any congressman is necessarily, less of a, that they're not criminals. It's a criminal organization. But what's sad is, of course, that typically nothing happens, that this guy could commit crime after crime after crime after crime. And some of his biggest crimes he'll never be punished for. What about the bombs he's dropped in the Middle East? Again, you had a bus of children that was bombed, and they're dead. Bombs supplied by the United States. Trump is a great move towards anarchy. There hasn't been so much shakeup in government in a long time. I don't see someone's going to have to explain how he is a step towards no government and getting to a voluntary society. Without Trump, you still, yeah. My issue is that it's that the government agents doing something to expose one of their own and hold them accountable to some degree. Yeah, I don't think anything's good. Yeah, of course you can get rid of Trump. There's still going to be government, and we're no closer to getting to a voluntary society. I get that. I'm just talking about how they're eating one of their own, or they should be. But it's probably going to turn out to be just one of these things where he, even if he is indicted, he'll be pardoned. So, it's just I think it's having the opposite effect of what he's doing. It's getting people to actually get out there and vote, so that they can maybe have people like this held accountable, so that he might be impeached and thrown out of office. So it's getting more people to actually vote, and into thinking that the system's going to do something to correct itself. Politicians go to, look, it happens. Dennis Hastert eventually went to prison. It's a rare thing, but it does happen. And through all this, I don't think it's going to be anything's going to come of it. And as far as if they had evidence, now remember they do. Michael Cohen pled guilty. He's convicted felon, and Trump is individual one. He just hasn't been indicted yet, because there is still an issue of whether you can indict a sitting president. And then, of course, you have the political issue. If they do impeach him, there's no way in the world they're going to convict him. So politicians, of course, looking out for their own skin. Political suicide. So with all these investigations going on, these so-called witch hunts, they're just going to keep it shut down, and maybe they won't be able to get a February 7th hearing with Michael Cohen. But it's all distraction. Most politics is distraction. That's what they want to do. So, wow. I guess it's just a Friday kind of thing. I need if anyone, hey, we could talk about anarchy, government abuse, and defending yourself in court. The number's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. And passcode is 2020. Trump is a total narcissistic psychopath, but that does not justify your total BS on matters of which you know nothing. Where am I getting my facts wrong there, Newman? Hello, Newman. You're free to call the show and set me straight. So I just, I'm going based on what I've seen on YouTube from multiple sources. The man is a lying scumbag, piece of garbage. Oh, he lied about, here's the thing. You can hear it. You can hear. He said he knew nothing about the payment to Stormy Daniels, right? He's on Air Force One. It's difficult to hear, but you can still make out. He was asked if he knew about the payment, and he said no. Didn't know about the payment. And they raid Michael Cohen's office, and they have audio of him talking about the payment. So, lied. So, well, enough about that. Thank goodness we're going to start getting some calls. We got area code 415. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Mark, my name is Jose. I'm actually calling from Texas. You got a California number?
Oh, okay, Texas.
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking at this chat that's going on here. I cannot believe people are still on the Trump train, and I mean, and they're still like there is no facts. There are allegations of supporting this cat. I just want to say, man, I support your show. And, at some point, people are eventually going to start waking up, man, to learn to live for themselves and answer to no one. I mean, that's what the true value of volunteerism is all about. I mean, I already had a couple of run-ins with two different departments the sheriff's department in California and the sheriff's department in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? I spent time in jail innocently, and now I'm fighting these cats over there. You know, basically using the methods of anarchists and show me the evidence. And so far, they haven't been able to prove anything. So at this point, I mean, all they keep doing is just extending the the hearing. I actually got one dismissed in Las Vegas. They tried to. I had police lie on me, try to accuse me of attempted murder. It was I spent 10 months in jail over there. So
you got accused of attempted murder?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you say you were accused of attempted murder?
Yeah.
Holy crap! What was their pretense for that? Jeez.
So I went in public to go shooting. I'm actually from the Midwest, right? So people go out and shoot in public land, which is federal land, right? And nobody says anything. But you had some woman that was celebrating her birthday, and she decided to go over there and tell me to stop shooting, to go somewhere else. I was like about a mile away from people, right? Like in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And then on her way out, there were like two homeless people that told her that I was shooting at them. They made this big scandal. So the cops show up, and I'm in my car ready to leave, right? So they show up from behind me, and then they basically at gunpoint, they tell me to get out. And so I started asking them, what's going on? And they're like, well, we just want to ask if you're shooting out here. I said, well, we'll have to answer you those questions. Like, okay, we're going to teach you a lesson. And it just went south from there.
What was the pretext? Who were they accusing you of attempting to murder?
Those two homeless people, because they said that they saw me specifically point my gun at them, and I was shooting at them. So it turns out that it was basically a setup. Those homeless people, it wasn't even a homeless guy. It was somebody that had already, charges of grand theft, driving under the influence, and then he also had he was a registered sex offender. So the pretense, they went and grand jury indicted me with him, saying that he was an ex-Marine and whatnot. So it turned out that we did our investigation and found out all this dirt on this guy. This guy was actually supposed to show up to court a couple of times. And he didn't show up, right, for the driving under the influence and the grand theft. So instead of issuing a bench warrant, they just waited until like a week or two after the times that I was, that I postponed my trial for. So yeah, just so everybody knows, this is what we're dealing with. It's just a bunch of parasitism with these bureaucrats basically sending people in customs trying to extort you out of your money. So
I'm glad that worked out, that you were able to get out. That's that's horrible. I mean, I know I'm working with a few things right now where it's like your hands are tied. I mentioned it briefly on the last show where they're just playing God, playing games with people's lives. I mean, how can you possibly, you file a habeas corpus petition? It's as serious as as any petition you can file, and they say, well, we'll hear that next year.
Exactly. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me.
Hold on.
I called it just right. I filed a habeas. Yeah, go ahead.
So you filed a habeas corpus petition to get out, and they didn't set it for a hearing immediately? No, the hearing was postponed for like 30 days. Then we went to challenge the habeas. Basically, there was no insufficient evidence. We challenged jurisdiction. And they said, but then the judge, right, the guy in the gown, basically he said, but we do have jurisdiction. I'm like, who's we? Well, we, the state of Nevada. I was like, right. So as you can see, I'm pretty, I don't take no for an answer. And if something's BS to me, I'm just going to laugh. So that's what I did. And they just took me out of the courtroom. So I get why you did that, but when your butt's on the line, laughing at the judge like that, not the best thing to do. It's like I mentioned on the show the other day is when we're trying to resolve a conflict, not to come out and try our best not to come off as like an arrogant, condescending jerk. And it was actually a negative comment directed at me about that, like, oh yeah, when someone's trying to steal, we should just be concerned with not looking. The thing is, when you're trying to resolve a conflict, like you don't laugh at them. It really is not going to help meet your goal. And if you do come off like a condescending prick, that's not going to be very professional and conducive to actually meeting your objective, which is to get this thing, to have them not steal your property. See, if we come off like a condescending idiot, they could just wind up taking your property anyway and saying, good, you deserve it. And, look, especially if we're doing as an activist, we want to, look, we have to be the professional. You want the audience, you want people watching to sympathize with your position, even if they don't necessarily understand it. Let them look, it's easy for an IRS agent to look like an arrogant prick. That's typically what you're dealing with.
Yeah, but anyway, so they try to make me several deals, right? Several offers, like, oh, just take the gross misdemeanor and we'll let you out. So several times I said, I'm not signing any documents. If you're expecting me to sign anything, I'm not signing anything. So I remember I paid bail in the beginning, and they gave me this house arrest BS, right, to get out of jail under house arrest. So I always sign all my documents, all rights reserved. People don't know how powerful that just putting those 3 words on papers are, but it can also backfire on you, especially if you're in their hands. So I'm gonna give you. So for anybody, if you ever try, don't try the sovereign thing, okay? Don't try the strawman, the sovereign thing, because it will backfire on you. That's not what I'm doing either. But anyway, so when I put all rights reserved on the contract, the house arrest contract, so I was already in the street. So they come and get me like 2 minutes later, right? It's like, yeah, get your ass back in here. You're not going anywhere. You fucking idiot. You fucked up.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. So anyway. So they were treating me like that. Or like, what is this? So he's like, this is the sergeant telling me, you effed up. You're gonna cuff him, take him back in there. We're gonna teach him a lesson. And that's how I spent 10 months in jail because of that. So I paid my bail. Basically, I paid the what would you call it when they kidnap you? Your ransom money. And I still, they basically stole it.
Okay, but let's address a couple of things that you're saying here, because the all rights reserved, this sounds like sovereign citizen or sovereign type stuff, and contract. What contract are you talking about? Because you said this.
Okay. So when you go on house arrest, it says there that they will collect a monetary fee for $35 per day for using their services of house arrest, for using their monitor. Basically, they're forcing you to use their services, right? So we know this is a racketeering business. So when they kidnap you, what I'm saying, when they take you to jail, if you want to leave out of their hands, you got to leave under their terms or no terms at all. So basically what I did, I spent 10 months in jail, basically not signing any documents, get everything dismissed on my terms. So, I was successful at it. I know a lot of people are not willing to go through it, but sometimes, if you want to set a precedent, sometimes you gotta make sure that you leave out of there scotch-free, no documents filed, nothing like that, right? So anyway, so I was held there and extradited to California for some supposedly gun charges. I was the aggrieved party.
But LeVay,
go ahead.
LeVay, that from what you described, it's not a contract.
It does say a contract.
Well, it could say contract. It actually says well, I guess that's kind of the public relations to make it look like so it's not what it really is, but it's not a contract. But why do you think it's powerful to put all rights reserved on something from them that you sign? What is that?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. Now, just so everybody understands, I'm not doing this sovereign citizen thing, no strawman, constitutionalist, none of that. Basically, when you have your when you put all rights reserved, basically it applies to not only your civil rights protected. I'm gonna put this in quotes under the Constitution. It also applies to your human rights protected universally, right? So when you invoke that, basically they gotta give you true due process in order for them to deprive you of your life, liberty, or your property. So what's going to happen right there is you're going to expose, how they make up rules of due process as they're going through the whole procedure of, trying to indict you, trying to charge you with their BS crimes.
Okay, wait. What's the difference between what is the difference between true due process and not true due process? Give me an example of something where they would, if you have true due process, you get X, but if you don't have true due process, you get Y instead.
Okay. So, for example, right? So they're saying that the laws and the Constitution apply to you just because you're in a specific area. So they're trying to impose their so-called jurisdiction claims on you.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're saying all rights reserved, basically, well, if I'm gonna accept this document or this legal document, I'm gonna reserve all my rights. Right. None of the rights that you're asking me here to basically give up in this instrument, I'm not waiving any. So any other basically duty that you're asking me to perform that waives any of my guaranteed rights that I choose to uphold, whatever rights I deem to be my rights, you're not going to take them away. For instance,
you're not being, LeVay, you're not being specific about. Give me a specific. What particular due process requirement do you get with true due process that you don't get without true due process? Give me a specific example of that.
Okay, so when they make a claim, they're making a claim of injury, right? So they gotta basically establish an injury in fact, right? We know that all these charges are basically fictitious in nature. There's no, they're saying that the law applies to you just because they're saying so in some instrument that somebody else wrote, right? So there is no evidence that they apply to you. So, excuse me about that. So when these people, right, they try to give you like a ticket or they try to force like something on you, you have to either have a contract that says that you are submitting yourself to their jurisdiction. You have to have either some kind of consent, either whether it's written, verbal, or implied consent, and they have to be able to prove by fact. If they don't have that, then there's no way that basically any written instrument that another party has can apply to you. Yeah, go ahead.
So, but what it sounds like, it just sounds like a variation of the sovereign stuff. Because this is what I imagine.
Yeah,
because the judge gets the ticket, he sees it in there, and he's saying, "Oh, he signed it with all rights reserved. We got to give him due process." You know what I mean? I mean, doesn't it? It's like it's something has to go off in the. This guy's different. We have a different set of rules for him than somebody who does not reserve all his rights. And that sounds.
Happening there is he's going to start interpreting it as the sovereign citizen stuff, right?
No, without even mentioning sovereign or sovereign, I'm talking about the actual mechanics of what of how this would work. Because the police are subject to due process requirements also. So if at some time you sign the ticket and it's all rights reserved, then they say, we have different rules for him. And so it could come down to, if you don't sign anything, how do they know that they're supposed to provide you the other rules? And so it doesn't sound like it has any merit at all. It just sounds like something somebody made up, because again, you mentioned the contract word where you either comply, you go to jail, you get shot in the process. So again, just try to be specific. What specific rules are in true due process that are not in the non-true due process?
Okay, so their due process clause, right? I'm saying theirs because, again, I didn't write the Constitution. Says that everybody's entitled to a specific application of due process when to be deprived of life, liberty, or property. So, when you sign all rights reserved, you're basically saying, okay, under the Ninth Amendment of their Constitution, right?
Wait.
Yeah,
But LeVay, I don't want you to just repeat what you've said. Let me give you an example.
Okay, go ahead.
A particular issue of due process. Cross-examination. Due process requires that you are permitted to effectively cross-examine the witnesses against you. That is a very basic due process principle. They're supposed to do that. So give me one due process type of principle like that, similar, that would apply if you have true due process, but would not if you did not reserve all your rights.
Okay, easily. I mean, there has to be a claim in fact with supporting evidence that their claim they're making that there's an injury in fact on another party. Without it, they can't just bring up some supposition or some superstitious law and try to apply it onto you, because these other laws are nothing more than practices and behaviors that they're trying to force you to submit.
But LeVay,
I don't know if I'm making it clear.
I understand what you're saying, but you're not making your case, because you can show there are thousands of cases where people, motions to dismiss for failure to state a claim have been granted, and they're not signing documents with all rights reserved. That's a pretty straightforward due process requirement, that there is a valid case or controversy before the court. Now they violate that all the time. I'll grant you that, but but the fact that they're violating that doesn't really make the case for you that they're going to treat you different if you sign all rights reserved. That's a principle that applies across the board
for this one. So let me make a case for this one. So now that I'm out, now I can actually sue these people in their under 1983 for false imprisonment and abduction and racketeering, and it will hold a claim against me for human trafficking based on the fact that they didn't grant me due process. That's what I'm saying. So I see a lot of people here saying that common law, right? So we are under common law. Basically, if you slap me, I slap you. If you hurt me, I hurt you, or stand my ground kind of thing, without having to go through these tribunals. But in this case, in order to sustain a claim under 1983, to take these people's money that they stole from you in the beginning, you have to have basically basis that you never consented to their intrusions or all these wrongs that did to you. That's
I don't think that's actually accurate. Can you cite anywhere where it is the law, because that's what you're saying, even common law, okay, which really the common law has been displaced by statute, so it's really not something that's even recognized anymore. The principle that there has to be harm for there to be illegal injury and damage, that's still applicable, even though there are no more common law crimes. But you're still describing something that it's there whether you sign under. It doesn't matter if you sign the paperwork that way or not. They still apply that rule. So you haven't. Give me another example, if you have any, of another rule, because what you're saying is there's a completely different rule book when you sign all rights reserved. So give me
another example. So we were in court at arraignment, right? And so I filed a motion to dismiss based on failure to state a claim and based on facts. So I withdrew that one, and I just said, I just want to say for the record that I want to, assert all my rights. I'm not going to waive any at this point. So you're not saying, constitutional rights. I'm not saying, the Constitution this, Constitution that, which is what they're expecting you to say. You're basically saying that you're just, your common sense, right? So when she said, well, I need you to sign that paper saying that you don't want an attorney, you don't want me to appoint you an attorney. And I said, well, I don't want an attorney appointed. I just established for the record that I'm waiving on my, I'm asserting on my rights.
Okay.
And then so she's like, well, so what are you trying to imply here? I'm not implying anything. What I'm saying here is, the court doesn't have any jurisdiction, and as unless you can provide me any evidence that the court has jurisdiction at this point, my claim stands as true. And then so she's like, she's like, we're just gonna leave you for later on. So she put me back in jail, and she brought me back outside.
But LeVay,
and then
you're not. You gotta. I want a particular due process requirement that is available with true due process, as you put it, that's not available without true due process. Give me, don't go into a narrative. Just give me the actual principle. So see, if someone asks me, Mark, give me a due process principle. Notice an opportunity to defend and an effective and cross-examination, a fair and meaningful trial, the ability to voir dire a jury to determine whether the potential juror can, be unbiased, things like that. Due process requires that the discovery rule is a due process requirement, and that the prosecution give all exculpatory evidence against you that may show that these are basic due process requirements. So tell me one that's available with
everything you just mentioned. They have to follow to uphold. There's no more jumping the gun, because see, when I was in Las Vegas, they tried to jump all that stuff with me. Like when we asked for discovery, they would not provide it. So we filed a motion to compel, and then I won't say the court in quotations. Basically, the judge, try to waive that, on behalf of the state. So when he tried to say that, I objected, saying, objection. Just for clarification purposes, whose due process, or who's entitled to due process here in court? Is it the state or the accused? So he didn't know what to say. So he's like, okay, well, at this point, we're just going to postpone the hearing for discovery. I got my case thrown out.
What the? Man, it ain't back. All right, I got to man the... I got to keep on top of this. I got my troll back. Sorry about that, but you're still not... You're not telling me... See, because point blank, I don't think there's any merit to this all rights reserved thing. I don't see it. And I'm going to talk about somebody who's on the show. And like I mentioned, I don't have the damn documents in front of me. I'll get them and do a full show about that, maybe with Chris on the line. But you're not giving me a single due process requirement that is available if you put all rights reserved that would not be available to you if you didn't do that.
Well, the most important one, I want to say, the appointment of counsel, because the first thing they do is they try to force an attorney on you immediately. And when you establish there that you're not waiving none of your rights whatsoever, you're basically saying, I'm going to make the decisions upon myself. And they're saying, well, are you going to waive this right over here? No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I have not, waived any of my rights. I'm saying that I'm upholding all of them. So see, what they do is basically, when you go to court, right? Then I know you're an expert on this stuff. You go to court, the first thing they do is they try to make you waive one right so you can uphold the other, etc. Like for instance, when you go to arraignment, you ask to have the right to a fair and meaningful hearing. They go into another rhetoric. And instead of giving you a simple yes or no answer, so they start telling you have a right to a fair trial and all that stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing with trying to keep this focused, I don't think you're making a case at all for what you meant for your claim about putting the all rights reserved. They don't necessarily go in and try to get you to waive rights when you go in. They just want you to enter a plea. And typically in traffic cases, they're not usually trying to get you to waive rights. I'll give them that. But even if they are trying to get you to waive a right, how is that in any way showing that if you sign all rights reserved, they say, okay, all right, we got a different set of rules for this guy, everybody. Pay attention. You see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know. I'm almost certain that you can't show that there's any evidence whatsoever that they're actually using two separate rules. That we signed it this way, we have to do it a different way. We don't have to give him. It's not like I'm racking my brain trying to think what do they do different, and for the I've asked you like 4 times, and you can't provide a single
But when you say
procedure.
when you say they force you to enter they don't force you, but they're looking for you to enter a plea, right?
Yeah.
When you plea, whether it's guilty or not guilty, you're still entering a plea. You're basically saying, yeah, I accept the terms of me being here, right?
Okay.
But when you don't enter a plea whatsoever, they really cannot prosecute you. So that's when they try to force that lawyer on you.
That's not, but Levette, it's not true. If you don't enter a plea, their own rules allow them. This isn't fantasy land like Atlas Shrugged, where whatever his name, I forget, was he refused to help them out by entering a plea. But the rules say you must. Well, then I'm not going to come. No. Their rules are very clear, which is why I have a whole video about the unsigned plea of guilty. If you refuse to plea, they just say not guilty and give you a court date. And so it's not going to change. They're not going to sit there and say, oh no, we have to do it like Ayn Rand said. He signed it, all rights reserved, so we can't enter a plea for him if he refuses.
But when the so-called judge enters a plea for you, now he's disbarred of his judicial immunity. So when you file 1983 on him, no matter how much their lawyers try to apply the judicial immunity, he will not be able to uphold that because he acted out of discretion. It don't matter if he was in a court, where they try to push the 4th element, right? He still acted out of discretion, out of his official capacity.
That's not.
That's what I'm trying
I don't
to
think
say,
that's true because
now he practiced law from the bench.
But no, because what you're doing is you're ignoring their, where they pass these laws and whatnot. I don't think any evidence they apply to anybody. But if you're talking about a government agent following the government rule book, and the government rule book says if so and so does not enter a plea, then I have discretion to enter a plea of not guilty for them. That does not. Where are you getting that from? That if they enter a plea on your, when you refuse to plea and they actually follow their code, where are you getting this that strips them of judicial immunity?
Okay, so there is a case back in and this goes to the precedents of the civil rights of 1871, right? So when you sue them in federal court, they're going to try to make the claims that the federal court does not have jurisdiction. So at the moment in time, right, when they try to when they enter a plea on your behalf, they just represented you. So what you do on these judges, you go into the bar association and then look up their bar number. So under constitutional law, public officers and employees, right, when you make that claim right there on your federal complaint, they can no longer uphold their judicial immunity. That's what I'm trying to say, because they're lawyers.
Wow. But they're not active lawyers.
But
go ahead. Judges are not active lawyers. They are not. I can't think of the term right now, but they're not. Mm-hmm. They're members of the bar, but they're not active members while they're sitting on the bench. You would have to be able to show a citation to show one single case where, because it sounds like that's what you've done. You've seen this done before. One single time where a judge in even a 1983 action was stripped of his absolute judicial immunity because he entered a plea when somebody refused to. I don't think that's even remotely. I don't think that's ever happened. The only time a judge is stripped of judicial immunity that I am aware of is if they act completely without jurisdiction. And that's not your argument here. Your argument is that the judge entered a plea, and because of something in the bar association, that somehow strips him of judicial immunity. And it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's not something in the bar association. It's the fact that he practiced law from the bench by representing you.
But he's not doing that according to their own rules. According to their rules.
Their own rules in state, but not in the federal rules.
But they're not following the federal rules.
They still got to go by the judicial canon. If they want to be noted as a judge.
But a state court judge doesn't go by the federal judicial canons, which are probably identical anyway. They go by the state canons. And under their rules,
Right.
if you refuse to plea, they have discretion and authority to enter the plea, and it's not considered the practice of law.
Right. But when you go into those administrative courts, right, the state courts, which are not constitutional courts, so when you go to and sue them yeah, no, that's how it works. So
no,
when you go into federal court,
I don't think that's.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that is actually how it works. They see that's the problem with when people start discussing these sovereign type arguments. It's such a deep rabbit hole. Well, you have to go, oh, well, what about this? And then you punch a hole in that, but you have to look at this, and then that's over here, and they're not going by this. And it reminds me of what so a call to the show who sent, and he's got some documented court cases, where they were kicked out, and there are no laws. There are literally no laws. They have never passed from 1789 to 2019. They have actually never passed a federal law. They don't exist. They look real, but they're not. They're not actually law. They've never actually had a real vote. They've never had, enough votes that then the bill was signed and became law. Not that they applied to anybody, but they never. And he's saying that they do go by the regulations, and that the states are not actually enforcing state law. They're enforcing federal law under the guise of state laws because they took federal funding for highways. And none of it makes sense.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, but I could sit here for the next, hour or so punching a hole in every single claim that you make. I don't think it's really necessary because we've already shown that the all rights reserved, whether it's UCC or not. Okay.
No, you don't need to know. Don't do the UCC stuff.
I'm just saying it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But it's not proof. There's no proof whatsoever that by doing that, there's a new set of rules that they're going to apply. I mean, could you imagine when someone gets a judge, or they do it in law school, where would they teach it? How does a judge know? Do they pull them aside? Dude, there's a separate, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be funny. There's a separate rule book if the people are smart enough to sign all rights reserved. So you have to take your regular due process rules, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get the special book, true due process. You have to actually be fair with those people. You don't have to be fair with the other ones. You can do whatever the hell you want. It just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And if someone's, this is a good point. I mentioned this the other day. Are you under the impression that they're all administrators? They're not actually judges because of some 1789 act? Not
necessarily like that. Okay. Well,
you see that.
What I'm getting at is they want you to play by the rules, right? So when you put all rights reserved, you're saying, okay, well, we'll play by your rules, but I'm reserving all my rights under your rules. That's just the case I was trying to make. I didn't have to go into all this rhetoric. So now, at this point, you basically, okay, you want to do this state thing where you're trying to force me into sign or apply your laws here. Well, then I'm going to challenge it in federal court, with your rules and with your rules and your statutes and all this, and they'll eventually lose. What they'll do is they'll do an ADR.
Wait a minute.
Basically, what they'll do is they'll just throw away all the case. I know it's expensive and everything. Your stuff works. I'm not saying your stuff doesn't work, but I mean, at the end of the day, it sets a precedent with these guys.
But you would be able to. Alone. But trial courts don't set precedent. Let's dispel that right there. However, you're saying that they'll lose, and they have lost. Do you have a case citation to show that you or someone else was able to have success, and you can show it was because of that defense? Because I'm even with the documents this guy provided me, where tickets got thrown out, or complaints, the backstory, the defense makes no sense whatsoever. And I can't possibly accept that a judge is looking at that and say, oh, he figured out they're not really, that there's no real, that it's fraud for us to try you on the laws that were never passed. I just, and that there would be a State Department document that actually bears out that the United States Department of State actually putting on a sealed document, there are no federal laws. There are no federal laws. Zero. I guess
they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
It is so outlandish. And yes, I mean, I'm going by what was in the email, and I probably should have just had that email pulled up so I can get it verbatim. But it's similar in that what you're saying doesn't make sense and doesn't hold up to what we already know. I mean, honestly, do you think a judge just looks and says, oh, there's a different set of rules here?
Yeah, he'll try to discriminate you. That's what they do. They eventually try to trigger the sovereign citizen stuff in their head. So they'll try to basically trample over it. So again, when you ask common sense questions, the first thing they're going to do is they're just going to dispose of the case, especially if it's a ticket. Now, if it's like, for instance, a case like that, like the one I was fighting, they eventually just gave up because I mean, you're not signing anything, you're not giving them any type of consent, so therefore they don't have any jurisdiction. That's what I'm getting at.
Well,
so because the laws, well, when I asked this in open court, after I said that, I said, do you have any evidence that the laws and the Constitution of the state of Nevada apply to me because I'm physically in the state of Nevada? So he just kicked me out and entered a plea for me.
Well, but
that's what it was. Next thing I know, I had the public defender showing up, so I fired him right there on the spot.
Okay, but the difference is for you and those listening.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is based on facts. It's based on logic. Yeah. Is it unorthodox? Well, I've got to give you that. But the merit is there on its own. Now, the question of whether you're being successful using that in court is a different story. There are many variables when you go to court. And, they have studies that show that you're going to get worse rulings from judges right before lunch and right before they go home. So the better rulings are right after lunch. So we know there are variables, and so that's going to add to it. Plus, you have to you're looking at how well that you argued, how well you public speak, did you object, and how aggressive were you? So the sovereign stuff and this other stuff, it doesn't hold up to any kind of rational inquiry. I mean, just like I've done in a friendly way with you, it's all about the the argument. There's just no way you can show any logical sense and proof that signing it in that way has any effect whatsoever, that the judge is going to, because look, what would happen if what you're saying is actually true? You would be able to go and argue that at the appellate level and say, I signed all rights reserved, and this son of a bitch didn't give me true due process. He gave me non-true, okay, and just and ignored all the true due process. And they're going to look and say, your signature is clear, and so you were supposed to apply Rule 21, and you didn't. See, just saying it doesn't have the. So, is there an appellate case that you know of where the trial court ignored the all rights reserved and it was appealed, and this person argued because maybe they knew a little bit more about it than you, and they said, no, the rule XYZ was not. No, they did not apply that and did not give me true due process. And the appellate court acknowledged at least that it was true, not whether the judge was guilty of violating it, but did they at least acknowledge, yes, there are two sets of rules if you sign it under, with all rights reserved?
Yeah, no, there won't be no case law like that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, there's a case law for it. No, there's not. I mean, no. But for me, it's worked out. It's an extensive process. But at the end of the day, they'll just leave you alone. So what I'm getting at is, for instance, after you file a civil complaint 1983 for that, right? What they do is when they run your like your driver's license and stuff, they just leave you alone. They're like, just have a good day. I'll just issue a warning and that.
Well, we don't know if it's connected
that's
to
what
that.
happened.
No, this is very common. I've heard this before, and I don't buy it for a second. It's no offense. I don't buy the argument of the claim because no one knows no one has ever who's made that claim knows what's in that computer because the cop isn't testifying. So what you're saying is that there's something in the computer when they run your driver's license or when they look you up that says, leave this guy alone. And I don't buy that unless you're, unless you're like the governor's son.
This just happened to me last week, right? So I moved from Kansas to Texas. I'm trying to apply for a driver's license here in Texas. So I'm signing the paperwork, all rights reserved for the application for a driver's license. So the two ladies are telling me, and these are supposed to be notary publics, because it says there that notary publics are the only ones that are going to sign that instrument. So they tell me, no, we can't, you can't sign like that, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, but that's how I sign that's how I put my signature, my mark. She's like, no, we're telling you, you only sign your name, and that is it, sir. So I was like, okay. So I leave the office. Next thing you know, I'm driving down the highway into town to go gas up. And then I see a state trooper, and he just turns and follows me and chases me all the way to the gas station. And then he pulls next to me, and then he's like, did something happen in my office? I'm like, sure. I was denied the privilege of obtaining a driver's license as a United States citizen. And he's like, right. It's like, do you have a driver's license? I'm like, do I have to give you that? And he's like, well, this conversation is completely consensual. And so I have another one running the plates over on the other side, right? Like, I have another cop, taking notes on a notepad and everything's like, you want to handle this, in a certain way? You want to back to the office? I'm like, no, I'll just file the 42 U.S.C. 1983 civil complaint. He's like, oh, sir, you have a good day. And he just left me. He just left. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, they know who to deal with and who not to deal with. As long as you act with them, respectfully, they'll leave you alone. Just don't try to argue with them. Don't try to make a case with them. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, that's not true. Philando Castillo was doing everything right, and he got murdered. So I got to disagree with you there. But I did pull up.
No, well, that happened to me just locally. I had to have my dad go pick me up over there and have my brother go drive the car back to town. Because, I don't have a physical driver's license on me, but I have a valid driver's license in Kansas. That's what I'm saying. I was trying to get one here in Texas. Okay,
well, I got this email pulled up, so I'm going to discuss this a little bit so I can let people know, exactly what the actual claim is, and hopefully I can find that envelope and I can, address this a little better, having a little bit more context and stuff. I appreciate the call. I'm glad that you see the merit in what I'm doing. It's very logical.
Yeah,
it's based on the evidence.
I really do.
This common law sovereign stuff, I would not use that. I wouldn't do it.
Okay, no, that's fine. But I appreciate it. I want everybody to know that your stuff, I followed it for quite a while, and I do believe it works. Is the most effective stuff out there.
I appreciate
that. Instead of going through the stuff that I had to go through.
Yeah. Well, don't do the sovereign common law stuff, and I think you're a lot better off.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate it, Mark. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call. LeVay in Texas. The number is 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020 with the pound sign to get you in there. And it says, if you want to make comments on your show about me and the material I was sending you, at least you should take the time to read. Yes, I should. Yeah, I will get that. He says once you prove the U.S. codes were never passed by Congress, everything fails because it only applies to agencies. Why are the U.S. codes not in the Federal Register? Because they never passed Congress. Why did it take from 1925 to 1947 before changing U.S. codes to positive law? Because they needed time to pass so people wouldn't read the preface in the first U.S. codes where it said they did not pass the Senate in 1935. They have sessions every single year. The Federal Registry Act said it is not listed. It only applies to agencies and not to the people. He says everything the state government does requires federal funding. I don't think that's factually accurate. I don't they may get federal funding, doesn't mean it requires federal funding. There's no citation, nothing there. When the state government receives federal grant funding, they must follow federal laws. Because what he's answering here is, I'm asking, if we accept that what you're saying is true, that there are no federal laws, how is it relevant for state government charges? And that's his response is, when the state government, okay, they must follow federal laws. Under the Highway Safety Act, Title 28 or Title 49, traffic laws, the state receives money to enforce seatbelt laws, their own seatbelt laws, and drinking laws, driver's license registration. They have their own separate laws that pass. You know, they go to the legislature and they pass it. The governor signs it, or it vetoes. It's overridden. With no U.S. codes being passed, the states can only use the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, when they come after a non-commercial car or truck, say you or me, and they commit federal funding fraud. In Alaska, the local cop writes a citation, and the state cops write summons and complaints. What are citations and summonses? They are both called writs. And Congress only gave the courts the authority to make a writ. Once Congress delegated an authority, it cannot be redelegated, also known as maxim of laws. The police are impersonating a judge. All writs come from a court to the cops, and the court's seal, not from a cop. The Black's Law Dictionary is being used by the judges and lawyers to change the laws without going to Congress. But you don't have to go to Congress because there are no laws. When you get all the information together, you do a notice of a wrong to the mayor, city council, the head local cop, and head state cop. Lay it all out. I also bought the Dun & Bradstreet report that shows our courts in Alaska are, quote, for-profit corporations, end quote. I do not work for the corporation, so the laws do not apply, just like McDonald's laws do not apply to me. Once you inform a public official of a wrong and they fail to correct the wrong, they become liable to you. I only had to do this once, haven't had to go to court since. Now, I know he has gotten things thrown out, but there's a lot wrong with this. Everything the state government does requires federal funding. I don't know where that is coming from. I don't think that's even remotely accurate. There's no citation given. It's just a claim. When the state government receives federal grant funding, they must follow federal laws. Well, that's true. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily enforcing federal law. I mean, even Richard Mack, when he was sheriff down here in Arizona, was able to win a federal suit against the, where the sheriffs had to enforce federal law without being paid. And it's like, no, we're not federal law enforcement. And he was able to win. So I don't think that just, yes, they have to follow, certain federal laws, but that doesn't mean that they are enforcing just federal law, especially since there are no federal laws. I cannot make sense of this. With no U.S. codes being passed, the states can only use the CFR, but they don't cite that in the complaint. They entitle 828 for here in Arizona of traffic. If they cite you for not having a driver's license, they're not citing you with violating the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations. They're citing you with allegedly violating Title 28 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. It just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't think that they're committing federal funding fraud. That again, there's not nearly enough information here, and I have to see the document. I've seen people have sent me things, and I wish this, Chris, you had just scanned the document and sent it to me. It's a lot easier to review it that way, and there's no chance of me losing it. Is this idea that in Alaska, the local cop writes a citation and the state cops write summons and complaints. It's not just Alaska. They do that everywhere. They write a summons and complaint, or they write the complaint with a promise to appear, like they do in Arizona or California. I don't know if it's necessarily accurate to call it a summons and complaint. It's certainly a complaint with a promise to appear, or they could just arrest you and you'd have to be OR'd or bailed out. What are citations and summonses? They are both called writs. See, this is kind of a conflation. The police officer writing a complaint and having you sign a promise to appear does not make it a writ. A writ is not the same thing as a summons. A writ is an order from a court to a lower court ordering them to do a certain thing. You have a writ of habeas corpus, you have a writ of error, you have a writ of prohibition, a writ of mandamus. And that's the thing. If you file a petition for a writ, you will get a summons to have it served. It's not the writ itself. So I think this is really inaccurate to say that a summons is literally a writ. And Congress only gave the courts the authority to write a writ. Well, actually, if you look at the state constitutions, in the state constitutions, state courts were given authority to do certain writs. So again, this is not looking good at all. The information together you do, and I know there's no proof here regarding judges. At least this is the Black's Law Dictionary is being used by the judges and lawyers to change the laws without going to Congress. I don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. And I know they usually have a conniption if you cite Black's Law Dictionary. I don't. Yeah, it's flat earthers moving into law. This is just not making any logical sense whatsoever. So I have a real problem because this doesn't make any sense. I get that the laws don't apply. There's no evidence. That's because there's no proof. And there's plenty of examples of me confronting bureaucrats on markstevens.net that bear that out. I just can't see that if you present this information that they accept it as fraud and they just throw it out. So yeah, he's got a number of court documents where things have been tossed out. But I have the same criticism leveled at me. There are other plausible explanations. It's not, you can't, I have to admit that some of the complaints we've got thrown out, and I do this, that there are other plausible explanations. It may not have anything to do with our defense. And so here, I can't help but put the same thing here. Yeah, he's got documentary proof of tickets being thrown out, but is it because they saw any merit in this part of his defense? I don't know if there was another defense that he was making with this, or if it was strictly, hey, you are charging me under federal law, and that's fraud. You're committing fraud by because these laws don't apply because they were never passed, and you're using Black's Law Dictionary to change the laws or to change the federal regulations without going to Congress, and because of this fraud, you got to let it go. I can't possibly see that that's accurate and that actually happened, because it makes no sense. I'm glad he's got things thrown out, and I think it's always great when tickets get thrown out, but it gets a little bit more, we need a bit more to go on. If this was logical and this made any sense whatsoever, then I'd be, hey, great. You've got the documents to show that this was tossed out. And, but here it's not like my position where they turn around and they argue, well, we don't have to prove that. It's not the same. Like when why do it, they contradict themselves. Jurisdiction's a pure issue of law. It requires no evidence to prove. All the prosecution has to do is show that you're physically in Arizona. That's a contradiction. These are, so this is very easy to debunk and show that it's illogical and makes no sense and it has no merit. So it's easier to then see that it couldn't possibly have been the cause of a dismissal, that they saw merit, that they're actually agree. It's one thing. I get them to agree there's no evidence and they argue that they don't need it. That's right. I'm arguing they need evidence. They say they don't need evidence. This is arguing that that there are no federal laws. I agree that there's no evidence they apply to anybody, but I can't possibly accept that. No, again, I don't have the documents, but people have shown me documents before, and they did not support their claim. And I think that this is one of those cases where it just doesn't add up. It's not. I can't see that. It doesn't. So if there's anybody listening that can make sense of that, 218-632, 9399. Passcode is 2020, but that's directly from and he's been on the show. So if I'm getting it wrong, but I'm reading it directly from the email, so I don't think that's the case. And again, he was on the show, and so we'll see. I'll find that document, and we'll discuss it again. And I'll have Joe on the phone. Have him on the show. But then we got someone local, area code 480. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? What part of the valley you calling from?
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and my name is Brittany.
Brittany, what can I do for you today?
I was calling to ask you questions, sir. I have been going to court for my kids, fighting for my babies in Phoenix, Arizona, and I have evidence of the abuse of my son. My 6-year-old son was abused by the foster mom. And I tried to show proof of all the things that CPS said was a lie. The judge told me that it was no need for her to look into it. Like, I haven't been hurt at all. And my daughter is with the foster mom that abused my son. And she told my daughter, you're Black. All you ate was ramen noodles. I'm going to make your life a living hell because you're a snitch. You talk about what's going on in my house. It's just a lot of things. And I have recordings of my daughter coming to the visits at my house crying, telling me what the lady said. They're telling them that they're sick so they can't come see me. Just a lot of things that they lied about. And I have messages from the CPS lady, and I brought it to court, and the judge said no one would ever see that. We're throwing that out. That's not evidence. So I don't know what else to do. I've been calling all kind of lawyers trying to have them take my case, and they're telling me, oh, well, due to you being in low income, we can't too much help you because you don't have enough benefits to get a lawyer.
Oh, because you can't afford. Yeah, you can't afford them.
Yeah.
What was the pretext for them taking your child? What happened?
They said the reason why they said that they took my children is because I wasn't able to take care of them and I'm mentally unstable.
So did someone report you? Was it a neighbor? Was it a friend, a family?
I don't know who reported me, but the whole thing is they're saying that I wasn't able to take care of my kids, and that's a lie because my oldest son is 14 and my youngest is 2 years old, and they're trying to adopt my 2-year-old out. And I'm trying to see, like, how could I get help? Because my evidence, they will not let it be shown. And I have the CPS worker telling me, she was like, I'll never see my kids again if I keep trying to bring up evidence and calling different places, different agencies to help me.
This is horrible. My first instinct here is to, and it is
I have recordings of it. And my 6-year-old son said, if I keep having to stay with Martha, I'm going to kill myself. And then my parent aide was there. She told me, she said, all this stuff that your kids are going through, I will testify, but you have to subpoena me. And, you know, my lawyer telling me that I might as well try to find someone else to take my case. And he's paid through the state. So they don't want none of the evidence to come out of what my kids is really going through. And my son is in a foster home now. They took him out of the lady's house because I called the police to report it in the hotline. And I called the hotline to report what was going on with my daughter. And my CPS worker called me yesterday and was all like, oh, yeah, I seen that report that you made for your daughter. And me and my supervisor, we got rid of that. So I don't know what else to do if they're going backtracking the reports that I'm putting in and erasing them like they don't exist. But all I have is the messages between me and the CPS worker telling me, yes, she know my son being abused, but she already put in the records that he got removed because of his behavior.
Well, but you said that there was a lawyer that was representing you in this matter?
Yeah. A lawyer that the state, I guess the state is paying.
Well, state appointed. So was there an actual hearing before they took the kids or soon after they took the kid?
Yeah, it was a hearing like 3 weeks after they took my children.
And there was
with the same judge that adopted out my sister kids.
Wow. And
that's what's so crazy.
And this is the attorney, the state appointed attorney. Did they represent you at this hearing?
Did he represent me?
Yeah, at that hearing.
Yes, he did.
And what kind of arguments? I mean, what kind of defense did he have to stop this?
He said that basically he was like, you guys really didn't have a reason to remove the kids or whatever. And the judge spoke up and told him, you cannot say anything. You cannot say that or whatever. And after that, shoot, he didn't have too much to say. Like whatever they said, he was just all like, just do the services that they say to do. And you're going to get your kids back. My kids been gone for 5 months. And I keep telling them, like, you're not speaking up for me. Like, I don't have, like, you're not having my back. It seems like you're working with them. And that's just what I told them. I'm not like, my kids are important. And I'm sending you the messages and the evidence, and you're not bringing it in court. And he told me, oh, we have to wait a certain time to do that. I'm not like, the more that we wait or whatever, the judge is already overruling everything that they say. So why wouldn't you present my evidence?
Well, it sounds like the judge did a pretty good job of intimidating the lawyer, and they're going to look out.
Yeah.
They're going to look out for their career and be able to take care of their family, and that's number one. They're not going to put their career in jeopardy for you. That's right. They're not going to do that, and you can't afford to get another lawyer. The lawyer didn't do. I mean, no. You would think that maybe he would file, but some kind
I told him file a motion. He gonna tell me, oh, I can't do that.
Well, you can't.
I'm all like, well,
that while he is representing you, the clerks will not accept your paperwork. The prosecutor,
yeah, that's what he told me.
Yeah, the prosecutor legally can't speak to you, and the judge will not listen to any argument. It's not a matter of merit. You have representation, and they're the ones that, unless they go as standby counsel, so that the two of you can object and offer argument, your hands are tied. Because my first impression was to get a habeas corpus petition and to get get a hearing on the legality of your child who's basically in state custody. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if they may look at it like, look, you're already, they could just reject it saying, look, you're already represented by counsel. You can't, even though the habeas corpus wouldn't even be in your name. Well, it would be regarding your child, but they could, it might be worth it, looking into and doing something like that. Maybe the lawyer would be interested in doing a habeas corpus, but he or she could be so intimidated by this judge and what the judge said that they're not willing to do anything.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
I mean, so there, holy crap, this is things just go from bad to worse. I don't have really too, can you argue ineffective counsel? I don't think it's necessarily that it's the attorney's fault in that the judge is threatening them. I mean, that's from what you're saying. I mean, that happened in open court, and if what you're saying is that's what was said, that's pretty bad, because what the judge did was deny you effective representation. And to have,
yeah, she did.
To have,
they told me I don't have a voice. That's basically what was told to me.
Well, due process at a bare minimum requires notice and opportunity to defend with an effective, effective defense. And here you have a lawyer, somebody who is presumably competent and knows what he's doing, or he or she, and the judge threatens them and basically, hogties them so that they can't feel confident to do their job, and their job is to ensure due process, that you get a fair hearing, and that
right,
and that's not happening if the judge is not allowing the attorney to do their job.
Yeah.
What particular agency does the attorney work for? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
You find out, or at least find out from them. If you look at the paperwork, their name and the office that they work in will be on there. Maybe you could get in touch and say, "Look, my lawyer. I'm sure they could do a good job if the judge doesn't threaten them, but the judge did, and so I have not had an adequate, effective defense because my lawyer was threatened." I don't know if they would do something about it, if the office themselves would go to bat for this public defender, the state attorney, and help them out that way. Because whatever orders the judge issued after threatening your lawyer should be vacated. I mean, that's just common sense. Because again, due process was violated in a major way because the attorney was threatened. That should be a no-brainer. But I get that the domestic judges are it's kind of a world of their own. These guys are not nearly it's kind of a free-for-all. I wish I had more to offer you, Brittany, but that's the best I can do for you today. Look into doing the habeas and seeing if you can get a supervisor down there to know that, hey, your employee who was hobbled in court, he was threatened by a judge, and I lost my child, as a result of this.
Yeah.
Gee. Oh my gosh. You would think that this was
it's kind of hard in Arizona. I don't know, if you don't have a real lawyer, you just don't have rights.
You have a real lawyer.
From what I've been seeing.
You have a real lawyer, and they're probably very good.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're probably, competent litigators, but you could have one of the best litigators in the world in there. But if they are going to knuckle under to the threat and not take it to a higher court, because this is the way it works. And I understand this. Once your case or my, when we go in, if something's thrown out, then we're never going to set foot in that court again, probably. But the attorney works there, so imagine he has to piss off his boss.
Right, and that's what I was thinking too. The same thing.
So the judge in that courtroom, at least while that lawyer is in that courtroom, the judge is his literal boss. And they can destroy a lawyer's career, and there are no shortage of anecdotes to show where judges have done that. So I get that.
Right.
But there's a child involved here, and
I have 5 children. Yeah. They want to keep my 2-year-old. That's what's so crazy to me.
It makes me. This is terrible. No offense to you. I'm not saying don't call them. But these are some of the worst things to deal with. In the whole thing. Right,
because I'm not like in family court. It just seemed like you will not win in that situation. And that's why it's confusing me that I'm going to family court, but they're having another court in the Supreme Court to keep my 2-year-old that I didn't even know anything about. So that's why I'm just all like, it's two courts. That the first one, I'm going to family court. I've been going for 5 months now, but I didn't know that they went to the Supreme Court for my 2-year-old. Well, and they made lies about all kind of stuff that's not even true. And I called to talk to the woman, and she was like, "Oh, it's nothing to be said. We don't want to hear your statement or whatever." The CPS worker and the foster mom already came, and they've been coming for 5 months, but nobody notified me about these court hearings.
Well, does your attorney know that?
And I brought it up to him today, and guess what he told me? Oh, well, yeah, they did send me papers, but I didn't think it was really a reason to go.
Okay. I have to take
back.
So
he knew about it.
I have to take back that he's probably a good attorney. Doesn't sound like it. That's bad.
No.
See, the thing is, the part of an attorney's job as an expert and why they're allowed to do these things, because it's presumed that they have the training and they have the knowledge. And they are supposed to explain to you have to sign off on these things. For him, he has to notify you and tell you, this is the legal ramifications if you go. And this is what can or cannot happen. These are the legal ramifications if you don't go. That's his responsibility. Right. So it's ineffective counsel because the judge threatened, and it's ineffective counsel because he's derelict in his duty. For him not to, all right, for just look, even for something so petty as this, if you are in court for, let's say, it's a contract dispute, the lawyer, if you give the lawyer for, let's say, the plaintiff who's suing you, if you give them an offer, it's not up to the attorney, as far as I understand, it's not up to the attorney to say, "Aba fangul." It's up to the lawyer to take that to the client and discuss it with the client and see what the client wants to do based on the lawyer's recommendations. And that's not what happened here. It's just like,
no, it wasn't.
So another example for those listening, if you're going to, let's say you're going to plead guilty, and especially in a felony, you can only do that on advice of counsel. His job is to tell you what the legal ramifications are. He's supposed to know the facts, he knows the procedure, and he's familiar with the process. And so he can tell you, if you plead not guilty and we go to trial, boom, 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 boom. And he's also supposed to tell you, this is the legal ramifications if you plead guilty. X, Y. That's his job. And so he is definitely, this would be, I guess, malpractice, because he did not do the minimum necessary. Oh, we have a hearing coming up, and I don't think it's necessary for you or even me to go as your lawyer because of ABC. This way, you know what's going on. And he, so when you mentioned that he's actually helping them, that makes a lot more sense to me. Wow. I wish that I could make, I know you don't have the money, so it doesn't help for me to say, hey, go talk to Mark Victor. And even though he's a criminal attorney, maybe it's something he's interested in, or maybe he knows somebody, who's a pit bull like him who go in there and help you. But I don't know if they're willing to.
Yeah, I'm to the point that I'm just going to probably, stay at a homeless shelter, sell everything in my house or whatever, and just try to get a lawyer. I get $1,300 a month from Social Security, and I'm willing to do that for my kids.
Well, if you lose your home, you're not going to get your kids back, period. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to stay. But look up Mark Victor. He's in Mesa, and he might be able to help. As far as funds, I don't know. Maybe he could do, help raise some money, do something like that. But not something I would be able to do. But maybe he's got somebody who would see what was going on, and they're experts in that, and they may be able to help or recommend someone that can help, because clearly the public defender is guilty of ineffective counsel and falling asleep on a job. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
But you gotta stay indoors, because they're going to take that into account, and they could take other kids from you, and you'll never, so do what you can to stay in, keep, at least where you are now. And Mark, say so you can understand, Mark Victor. Okay. And he goes under the attorney for freedom, and he's a good lawyer. He's a voluntarist or an anarchist. He's a good lawyer. I won't, give it a shot. And okay. I don't think there's any. Maybe you could talk to a supervisor in the meantime, and let them know what's going on. I would say file something with the court saying my lawyer's fallen asleep on the job here. They're not going to listen to you. They have a legal reason not to. And I take back, don't talk to him about doing a habeas corpus, because he's not going to have any, he's not going to do it. But, right. I know. But we could try Mark Victor and let him know that, Mark Victor, and let him know that you spoke to me, and, he won't hold that against you, by the way. Okay. So I just look him up, Google him, attorney for freedom, and see what he's able to do. If he's got some resource, if he's available, he's able to help, or he has some resources he knows of, he can get you in touch with somebody, because this is terrible. All right. Thank you so much, sir. You're welcome. And please keep in touch. Let me know what's going on. I will. I'll make sure I keep you updated to what's going on. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Good luck. All right. Amy. All right. Thank you so much. Bye. Oh boy, when it comes to CPS and it comes to them family courts, somebody mentioned in the chat, actually very rare for two judges to actually go to jail. The kids going to prison in Pennsylvania. Horrible. And those family courts up in Maine, Carla Bassan. Oh my gosh. And then when you hear, I found out on the air, someone sent me a link. Boy, I didn't like seeing that. Somebody in New Hampshire. And it's on me for not remembering the name. But it was about 4 or 5 years ago, set himself on fire as for what the New Hampshire family court system did to him. I can't even imagine what I would do and how I would feel if my kids were taken away from me. Yeah, I know. I know Bikes and Bullets. Those two just stepped over the line and they got caught. I know it's a lot more common. I mean, it's in your face, at least with adults, that the private prisons, like CCA in Arizona, they changed their name. But they have in their contracts to have 100% capacity. Well, there's a penalty. It'll cost the state more money, more of our money, if they don't have 100% capacity. So there's a perverse incentive to get as many people in there as possible and keep them in there as long as possible. The guy in IRS building, Joe Stack, I think it was Joe. Was it Joe Stack? Somebody, you can look, his name was Joe. He was the one who flew the plane into the IRS building. And of course, probably the most famous one for being pushed to a point is Carl Drager, New Hampshire, 20 years ago or more. It's awful. Someone says it's time to form an anarchist militia. No, that's not how we get anything done. We have to expose these people for the criminals that they are. And that's the thing. Trump is a terrible example of a politician because he's so crass. He's so unsophisticated. You can see right through him. He can't speak. It's easy to see him as the con man that he is. But when you've got someone who's well-spoken, like a lot of politicians are, not so easy. We have to expose these people because CPS is just horrible. Someone saying Joseph Stack the third. Yeah. Well, someone's saying the tank guy here, but the tank guy, are you talking about Tank Man or the tank guy in San Diego? Because two different, I don't think the guy in San Diego had any kind of particular, I think he was, it was like he was getting back at government agents for destroying their life. But I don't know, boy, if it was me, they took my children. I don't doubt. I really don't think I would be thinking straight. I think I probably would go call Draga on them. Maybe not immediately, but if they took every avenue away and there was no remedy, yeah, I think that most people would go call Draga. Taking your kids, taking every remedy. That's one of the things that's so dehumanizing about it, is that they have courts and they have procedures and they have due process and they have, what is it? Real due process, true due process. And they just, it's just for show most of the time. It's always show when it comes to the IRS. If you get an IRS summons, you're going to lose. There is no due process. There is no appearance of due process. You are going to lose. Because I don't think my position, as there is no defense that they recognize. You are going to lose. And unfortunately, that's the way things seem to work in family court. And I speak from experience, not that I've ever had a divorce, but I've helped people with that stuff. A good friend of mine, Florida, was able to prove that the restraining order was based on fraud. It was based on perjury because they have to do the affidavit. So I worked with him and we got the questions. We're going to do a deposition on the soon-to-be ex, and the judge refuses to allow it, saying, I will not allow you to harass this woman any further. Further? There hasn't even been a trial yet, all right? She said that the only way he was going to be able to do a deposition was if he got a lawyer. So he goes in, speaks to the lawyer, and he said, I do not want you to represent me in court. I only want you to do the deposition. You are not to file a notice of appearance. You are not to do that. Now, all that's agreed to before the money is exchanged. So, everyone knows how the story ends. He gave the money. And the first order of business, notice of appearance filed in court. Now he's stuck. Because like I said, the judge is the boss in the court. Even if he fired her and the attorney said, Abba Fangul to the judge, I don't want to work with this guy. After she got out of jail for contempt, she would still have to work with him. Lawyers do not get to tell judges if that they don't, that they're just going to walk away and they're not going to represent somebody. The judge is the only one who determines whether a lawyer is going to represent a party or not. The judge is ultimately he's the boss. He or she, they're the boss. The black robe means they tell the lawyers what to do as far as who's representing who and if they're not. Hey, they can even limit the arguments that they make. So he was stuck. So not only did he have an agreement that she would not file a notice of appearance, she did it anyway. She was only contracted to do the deposition. And does anyone think that the deposition was done? Of course not. So it's a horrible thing in family court. And that's just one of many examples. And one of the worst things is when you break somebody, because all he did was give up. He says, I can't take it anymore. I just want it over. No. So that was that. You got to move on. At least it wasn't a matter of someone losing their children in that case. That's absolutely terrible. So I hope Brittany is able to connect with somebody, because unfortunately it's not something that I am able to assist much on. So hopefully, and those, hey, and if you're in a felony situation in the Valley, in Mesa, the Phoenix area, your first rodeo should not be a felony case. You should at least speak to someone like Mark Victor. He's got a good track record, and he'll fight for you. So we're at the end of the broadcast here. Hopefully, at least one of the takeaways that we get from the show is not to do Freeman sovereign type of things, common law things. Just writing just writing something on the ticket is not going to make the judge apply different rules to you. It's stick to logic, stick to the facts. It's got to be rational. Remember, that which can be asserted without proof can be dismissed without proof. Hitchens' razor. Keep the burden of proof where it belongs. I will be live again next Wednesday. I appreciate people calling in today, tuning in. This will be posted at markstevens.net. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but we will be live again on Wednesday. So, hey, till then, everybody.